On today's episode of the DeRaud-Messinger Show, Dylan, we're previewing and predicting UTSA versus number two, Texas. Longhorns fans, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. It's greatly appreciated. And check us out at HornSports.com for all the latest in Texas coverage. Now, Dylan, basic game info as always. The game is Saturday, the 14th at 6 p.m. Central Time at Darrell K. Royal Texas Memorial Stadium in Austin, Texas. Televised on ESPN. Dylan, the line has been moving, but I believe it opened up at about a 30-point line. Now, Dylan, scouting report. How are you feeling about the UTSA, wait for it, offense?
It's been rough, Devon. I mean, they're replacing Frank Harris, one of their longtime quarterbacks, albeit he wasn't able to play much last season just due to injuries. But he's not somebody that Texas can expect out on the field. Uh, their offensive coordinator, though, is returning from last year, Justin Burke. Funny enough, Devin, he used to be a part of the Texas head coaching staff back in 2014 all the way to 2016 as an offensive special assistant and then a quality control and tight ends coach. So there is some burnt orange blood within the UTSA coaching staff, but I don't know how it's going to translate because based off their past performances, Devin, starting with the QB Owen McCown, he was benched against Texas State after going 10 for 23 for 105 yards. After a good game against Kennesaw State to open the season, albeit though Kennesaw State not up to the same level of competition as Texas. So that's something to watch here for McCown when it comes to just the accuracy, Devin, and being able to make the correct reads. I know with Texas' defensive line, they're going to be able to get at the quarterback. I mean, they didn't make Davis Warren very comfortable against Michigan. I'd expect the same against McCown. So seeing how he handles that, the pocket there is going to be key. And then when you look into the backfield, Robert Henry, he's led the team with 56 yards within 2 games, Devin, on 15 attempts. So not a lot going for them. They only had 66 yards on 30 carries against Texas State as well. So the running game, again, also hasn't been where UTSA would have liked to be in the past. They've usually been pretty good running the ball, Devin. So this is something new for them. And then receiving, they got Willie McCoy. He leads the team with 118 yards. And you got Devin McCune with 17 receptions. He had an 11 reception game against Kennesaw State.
All-time name, by the way.
All-time name.
All-time
All-time name.
Yeah.
But I expect him to get a few yards and be heavily involved offensively against Texas. It's just it just hasn't been enough on the ground, and McCown has been again struggling with just getting the ball to his receiver, especially last game. And then when you look at the offensive line, Devin, they've allowed 5 sacks on the season. I mean, they're working in new guys. They've got 3 transfers at left tackle, at center, and at right tackle. So it's been mostly a patchwork offensive line. And again, to bring up the Michigan game, that was another offensive line that's trying to get some chemistry together, and you're going to be seeing the same thing with UTSA. So that's the offense. Lot left on the bone there for UTSA, and have not been running on a high, at least given last week in the I-35 showdown.
Yeah, Dylan, it's tough for the Roadrunners to be down Frank Harris, who seemingly used up all of his eligibility and then someone else's eligibility. I mean, he was in college football
He was a vampire with eligibility. Yeah.
for at least 10 years. I mean, yeah, vampire. He was draining other people's eligibility to take his own. And Dylan, I think he's on like their NIL side of things now. So it's interesting. He's still around San Antonio, but definitely missing his presence. Defensively, Dylan, as you're talking about the offense, it just hasn't been too pretty this year for the Roadrunners in total. You got redshirt senior safety Ken Robinson, and then senior linebacker Jamal Ligon. Dylan, I know I'm usually not the one that's mispronouncing things, but this might be my week. And then senior linebacker Martavius French. Those are 3 of the top tacklers from last season that return. Now, 3 out of 4 for them, returning 3 of their top 4 tacklers from that prior season. Dylan, as I'm mentioning, that's pretty solid for them up front. But just overall, Dylan, there's not too much to talk about, especially because UTSA fans, cover your ears. Texas fans, you can unplug. Trey Moore, the edge rusher from UTSA, transferred to the Longhorns, has already looked pretty good this season. And doing even some Colin Simmons action last weekend. And then you throw in Anthony Hill Jr., who's already the mainstay for the Longhorns. It's been a good just good coming for the past 2 weeks for this Texas team. Dylan, UTSA wise, we're talking transfers. Denver Harris might be their most talented player on defense, and I'm saying talented, not necessarily production wise, but he's a 2-time transfer. Texas fans who know their recruiting have followed him and know all about him as well. Of course, stops at A&M and LSU, but still, we're going to have to see how he performs out on the edge against some of Texas' best, whether that be Isaiah Bond, Matthew Golden, Silas Bolden, etc., etc. And even Wingo is yet again, Dylan, we called it. He's already emerging on the scene. But last week against Texas State, your boys, UTSA allowed 309 passing yards and 195 rushing yards. I pause for emphasis there. Not too great. Now this team did go 9-4 last season, so not too bad. Of course, not the biggest conference in the world, Dylan, but football is football at the end of the day. You never know what's going to happen. Dylan, we have X factors here. Who do you think is going to shape the outcome of this game, if it is a person?
I mean, I'm looking at two groups. I started with the running back room, Devon of Robert Henry and Kavorian Barnes. But this offensive line, it's tied to it as well, just given the fact that if they can't get a balanced attack against Texas, I don't see much hope. They're already not playing like a team that I would say would be able to put Texas on an upset alert, especially going into the 40 acres, right? So it's going to be tough. And if they cannot make Texas pay when they don't send, or if they, if they're only rushing four, if they can't make them pay and run the ball and get some yards there, and Texas is able to just get to a point where they're sagging off and it doesn't matter, or they're just blitzing like hell, it's going to be a rough day for McCown. And, it's, I don't see much hope there, Devin. So if they can get the running game going, definitely get combined over 100 yards. I think they have a chance there, just making Texas respect their offense and open some things up for McCown, who would, I think, benefit from some help in general when it comes to taking the pressure off of him
Oh, yeah.
and allowing him to just have some time to throw the football.
I think he'd appreciate any of the help, Dylan, after last week's performance. They need something. And Eddie Lee Marburger? Yeah, Marburger. Dylan, he's the backup quarterback for UTSA, not starting in this one, but after playing Texas, Dylan, he might as well be, focused and featured at some point, just given that Texas defense against UTSA. Were there any other X factors that you had specifically?
No, again, I gotta side with just Robert Henry and Kavorian Barnes when it comes to the running game.
All right. Now, Dylan and I were joking about this in our notes writing stages, and I'm Dylan just sticking with that as the X factor. I have the X factor in this one being the Texas mentality. Dylan, this has the makings of a potential trap game. It's hard to call it a trap game, though, because the mentality for this Longhorns team has just seemed at a better place than it has in years past, where there were times entering games like this, you would kind of doubt maybe where they were from a mental standpoint, Dylan. But, I mean, if you saw them
That was
prior,
3 years ago, though.
exactly, if you saw them prior to the Michigan game in the tunnel, they were pretty much more hyped than Michigan. So I'm not really worried about a mental standpoint in this one, but it's just their mentality. I know they liked the John Wick motto last year. I'm not sure what they're rolling with now, but it seems like they're still rolling with it, Dylan, because they have been pummeling opponents. So in this one, just can Texas keep their foot on the gas pedal, and can it be a game where Arch Manning makes a second or third quarter sighting, Dylan? That's the goal really for Sarkisian, because if he's doing that, Arch, of course, is one of the players. If Arch is in, then all the other young guys are in as well, and that's good experience for the team to have in the coming weeks and coming months. So that would be my X factor here. Now, Dylan, danger level. Oh, man, I don't know how mean you're going to be. What are you giving it?
Come on. I have it at a 1. Like I said earlier, UTSA has not played like a team that would inspire any sort of underdog bets and any sort of upsets. Anything can happen. But what I've seen out of Texas is how they handled Colorado State, the team they were supposed to beat. They manhandled them. And then Michigan on the road, another team that they betting odds were supposed to beat, and they completely handled business against a top team from last year, right? So This is the top 14 that UTSA is going into play, newly SEC, and they're going to be on the road. And I just don't see the scenario here, unless it's NCAA 25, that UTSA wins this game.
Man, yeah. Now I did beat Dylan with UTSA and
He
NCAA
did.
25, so I
Yeah.
gave you credit last time. No credit for me.
Someone's got to
Anyway,
figure out these
anyway,
RPOs, all right? And
yeah. That's what the issue was. Dylan, head coach of UTSA, Jeff Traylor, has Texas ties, and I love Traylor. I think a lot of the fans in the state of Texas love his mentality and kind of the toughness he's brought to a UTSA team that has lacked that in the past. I wouldn't say dynasty, Dylan, because that's a stretch right now, but the little regime he's got in UTSA in the past couple years is very impressive. He would be a reason to be scared of this UTSA team, but to harken back to a prior point, with no Frank Harris at quarterback, there isn't the guy for the Roadrunners that Texas comes into the game being somewhat scared of. So I'm also going with the one on the danger level. In addition to all that, it's a night game at DKR, Dylan. It's just not the ideal environment for anybody. Nevertheless, a team that's not in a bigger conference. So I'm going with the one here as well. But yet again, you still got to come into this with the right frame of mind, as we mentioned. Now, Dylan, what's your overall game prediction here?
yeah, I've got Texas Devon winning this 56-0. I know a recent team, Notre Dame, lost to Northern Illinois, so maybe there was some hesitancy with Texas fans being like, "Well, anything can happen," and you've got Florida losing to an FCS team a year or two ago to start the season. And the biggest thing is like Notre Dame did not look good against A&M. So they were not playing their best. So anything could happen. Texas is playing their best football at the beginning of this season, and they're only going to continue to get better as receivers like Isaiah Bond start to get worked into the offense and build chemistry with Ewers, right? And so I expect an even bigger game from this receiving core for Texas. I expect an Arch Manning sighting. I think that's going to be a popular thing going into the second half to get him out there. Probably a bunch of chance, and then Devin, I feel like there's a chance here that two receivers for Texas, which hasn't happened again yet this season, go above 100 yards. I think there's going to be big play central, and it's just going to be another beatdown by Texas against teams that they're supposed to beat, and they just looked like a complete buzzsaw.
Yeah, Dylan, I want to go with that same score, but it's just every time I go shutout, the other team gets a point on the board. So I'm going to go Texas winning this one 45-7. Like Dylan was saying, though, I would not be surprised if the margin itself is bigger. Some things I wanted to note, though. Quinn Ewers has looked more and more comfortable as a quarterback in the pocket for the Longhorns, which is scary considering that he's in the Steve Sarkisian system. And once comfort is there, you kind of unlock all the weapons that you have. And speaking of those weapons, you have Gunnar Helm. His stock is rising. Matthew Golden, his stock is rising. In addition to all the other guys, Dylan, that you are already pretty comfortable with on the team, Isaiah Bond and Bolden, as we were mentioning, are two of the other pieces. And then Wingo also out wide. You have those guys in play at all times. Now, Ewers has already just elevated his game this season alone, Dylan. He's shown it at times in the past, but it's only 2 games, so it's still not enough of a sample size, but it seems like the consistency is being brought forth a little more often, Dylan. So that's good for the Longhorns. But defensively, that secondary, oh boy. Dylan, Andrew Makuba did not look like a nice guy against Michigan.
Oof.
I feel
Yeah.
bad for McCown out there in the UTSA offense because this is a chance for the secondary to once again show that they're not nice people back there like they were last year. Last year, Dylan, it was a doormat. It's hey, welcome in. Here's the end
They were
zone.
generous. They were being of service, Devin. You have to respect it sometimes.
They were very generous, very welcoming. Please score 6 on us. This year has not seemed to be the case. So it's fun to see, Dylan. Definitely would not go as far as saying it's DBU for all you longtime Longhorns fans, but it's a step in the right direction. And UTSA, as Dylan was also mentioning earlier in the video, they're going to have to do their best to block some of the guys that Texas has, whether that be former Roadrunner Trey Moore, or Ethan Burke or Anthony Hill Jr. or yet again with some crunch time and garbage time coming up potentially, some more Colin Simmons action, who he was already getting mixed in quite well, Dylan, even well before the game was ending. So that's going to be an exciting game for the Longhorns yet again overall. I got 45-7, Texas winning. Hopefully, if you're Steve Sarkisian, it's a game where you get to see how your second string and third stringers do, and hopefully, if you're Steve, earlier rather than later. But Dylan, more importantly than our thoughts, what do you guys think about this Texas UTSA game? What is your score prediction? Let us know down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And as always, check us out at hornsports.com and have a great rest of your day.